after we've done some of the seeing is believing thing, we can then maybe go back to the session and I will answer your questions if you want to try something out or hear something soloed and then play with it, or have me play with it while you listen to it. I'm happy to do this afterwards, okay? So what I'm doing here is I have some noise generator basically hitting the console here on various channels, and I'm looking at two different channels. One is the blue channel, which for this demo now is my reference channel. And the other one is the yellow line. And as you can see, I try to level match them as best as I can, and so when everything is off in this console, it's pretty much the same. So this is what you would expect. Now I have dialed in a setting to the EQ where I'm using the high pass and low pass filters with just their initial start values, and I'm using the 3 of the 4 EQ bands here, the high mids and the low mids and the bass. And what I'm doing is I'm boosting completely maximum gain values, and I'm using either minimum or maximum settings also for the Q and for the frequency, because that's the only thing that's really reliable when it comes to repeating it. So when I switch on the EQs now, you can see that these two channels are really not completely the same at all. I mean, they have different peaks here, and these are my two channels here, which I can move now. And what I'll do now is I will cut this one channel and add another one, so you can actually see that also the tolerances, they vary from channel to channel. So right now I'm displaying channel 19 and 20, but I'm now displaying channel 9 and 20, and the tolerances are even bigger. You see on the low end there's quite a significant difference on these two. And I'm switching another pair. This one is a little closer. I'm not going to answer the call.
I'm official. I work here.
Okay.
Nope.
Come on, turn on speakerphone.
Was it Joseph Triani who wants to plug in? So another one, this is just to show. I mean, I could go on now with 48, or how many channels do we have here? 64, I don't know.
56.
Yeah, okay. So just to give you an idea, and to show, we've actually never done this before, to show people that this is actually real and it's not something we make up. The same thing, and maybe even more importantly, is true for the dynamics, because in every compressor you have attack times, sometimes hold times, release times, and we've done experiments where we would route a bass drum, a mono signal, to a stereo bus, and then have the compressors work on left and right individually, and you can actually see on a scope that the whole thing starts to bounce because the left channel might get ducked earlier or faster, and then releases differently, so the whole signal starts to bounce like this on your scope. And you can imagine if you do this to 60 or 80 signals in a mix with a rock band or pop band, that this is quite a significant change then. And when we did the Neve console first, we modeled the EQs and the compressors, and our software team has modeled a lot of units from all the SPL stuff, the Transient Designer. We've done the Millennia EQ, the Dangerous Music, the Vertigo, Shadow Hills mastering compressor. So we were pretty confident that we nailed the compressor and the EQ, but it still didn't sound exactly like my console. And since I was sitting at my desk every day when I was checking it, we started looking into these tolerances and had this idea. And then we believe now that when people say, well, a mix in the computer, it's lacking width and depth and whatever, it's probably because of the phase issues, the small ones that are actually pleasant. So it's not a bad thing to have this. It's a very desirable thing, I guess, to work on a console like this. But we believe that this is the missing link so far between mixing in the box and not getting the exact same sound that you get on a console like this, and we're offering this now. So I can show you now something else, which is the plugin, and we're starting here with the E-series. So as I told you, you can switch between between the black EQ and brown EQ on this E-series plugin. And when I'm going to dial in channel 1 here. Channel 1 is the one that was actually modeled after the hardware, our golden unit, so to speak. the way we apply the TMT is that we investigate, and sometimes with the manufacturers of these components will actually have specifications, or even the companies who build these consoles, they have requirements that, okay, this section must be 1% tolerance parts, this can be 20%. And so we found out what these tolerances are, and we put this all in an algorithm basically. So you can see now that you have a similar difference basically to what you saw before on these two channels. And what we've done in these plugins now is that you can actually select. You can select between the digital stereo mode, which, as you can see here, it gives you channel 1 and 1, so two of the same, which is basically what until the Neve plugin came out, which we modeled, every plugin does. So when you have an emulation of any console or channel strip or whatever it is, it's basically one channel, and you can use it 200 times in your big session, but it's going to be the same over and over again. And in this plugin now you can actually have two different channels. You can step through the different channels now. You can see how the frequency response changes. For example, this pair here, 3 and 4, it's almost the same. I mean, if you actually were looking for a pair that's very close in tolerances, you can actually, if that's important to you, you can go through these channels and actually listen to them, or even put them on the scope and find some channels that are really close, and then you will find some that are just completely off. And this is pretty much, if you would go through this console channel by channel, this is what you would find here.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So you got this plugin inserted on each channel, and then on each channel it can run a different transfer characteristic?
Right now I'm just running this test tone, or this noise generator, into one instance of this plugin, and I show you on the scope this stereo channel. In the mix that you heard, I have it pretty much on every channel, and also on my subgroups for the drum bass, the bass, the guitar bass, the vocal bass, the effects, and all that stuff.
I was asking because when you talk about tolerances, you're talking about the differences between two things, so you need to have both things present for that to have any impact, which implies
if you had a
having
mix
a plugin
that
across
was
all.
just mono, one acoustic guitar, it probably wouldn't matter too much.
Or the exact same transfer characteristic on all channels.
Yes. And this is why we have this random button here for either one channel or all. It will actually give you a warning, because you can start mixing a song. Maybe you have like 40 channels present in your mix, and then you could save it, and then you can play back the mix and actually click on this random button a few times, and it's almost like it will change the timbre of your mix a little bit. It's not like the mix is like this dull or super bright.
Right.
I mean, this is, especially if you're using the EQ with a little bit of brain, I would say. So you're not doing, what I'm doing here is just 20 dB plus and 15 dB minus, and all that's just to show you these curves. Of course, if I dial in only like a dB or two boost on this band, the differences become smaller.
Yeah.
On the dynamic section, that's actually not true, because there you always have the full tolerances. If you have a compressor going on and it's just faster on this one channel or slower, or it reacts different, this will be true no matter how you set it.
Mm-hmm.
And the compressor part is just not as easy to show as fancy. This is just something that everybody who looks at it, who's into audio, I guess, will understand completely what this does to your mix. Yeah, so if you want, I've prepared a little bit more music for you to listen to. We can, for example, solo the drums, and then I have on the drum bass, I have 3 different versions. I actually used an E series. This is the G series first, and then I did a setting pretty much just by ear. So I didn't copy the exact same settings of the knobs. I basically just went in and did one setting that sounded nice to me or suitable for that song with this channel strip, and I'm using 2 different channels here. And then I did the same thing with an E series and just dialed in a totally different setting. And I also did the same thing with our Neve console, and you can now actually do, as soon as these plugins are all released, right now the Neve plugin is the only one that's available, but like I said, the other ones will be out soon. Then you can actually run your vocals through a Neve channel if you want, and put an E series on all your drums and maybe a G series on your acoustic guitars. You can actually mix and match in your DAW session and use different channels also, or the same. I mean, it's pretty much like a customizable board. So So maybe I should just play you this because it's pretty cool how the tone of the drums changes depending on which console you use. So let's start with the G series here. I'm gonna bypass this now and just switch to a different chord. That's the E series now. Maybe let's loop a section so you can actually hear it. I can overdo now what I'm doing with the EQ on that drum thing, for example, so you can actually also hear the differences of the EQ. So I'm turning it down. I'm boosting now with a really steep. And if I just randomize the channels now. All this different type of ringing, or I mean, of course, that's not a setting you would probably use in your mix, but still, if you're using a modern setting, hopefully you will.
Metal Machine music too.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, if you the session I have here is just a heavy rock session because a friend of mine, Tobias Lindell, who's also a partner with Plugin Alliance, he does all the great 500 series modules and then his own plugins. He sent me this session, and he's a really cool rock producer. So I decided to use this, but I mean, it's just one session to show what it does. Of course, it works pretty much on everything, maybe except for if you're recording classic with 4 microphones or something. But if you're into hip hop or rock or pop or metal, whatever it is, jazz, and you're recording real signals, I guess it's a real benefit to have these tolerances. So yeah, just lighten up your mix. So yeah, I guess, I mean, this was pretty much the hands-on demo. I'm happy to, if you have questions or if you want to hear something else, I'm happy to do.
Dirk, in the development of your algorithms, did you have an opportunity to go back to the schematics for some of the components?
I mean, this is a non-licensed product, so we haven't really worked with SSL. But I mean, it's easy to get a hold of consoles like this, right? So we have over the years developed our own modeling technologies, and we basically, I mean, when we model EQs, for example, we get them to phase cancel the hardware that we model. That's how accurate it is. With dynamics, it's way more complicated because the slightest bit of just different attack or release time just gives you something that won't completely phase cancel. You can measure it and it will give you the same character and punch or whatever it is. Yeah.
Let's hear the whole mix.
Yeah. Can do this. You want to hear the whole song?
Yeah, go for it.